Welcome everyone to this quick lecture on restoring the exercises database. This database is slightly different than what we've encountered before with the DVD rental database, so we'll quickly guide you through it, and we're going to be using this database for a series of exercise questions. So we're going to use this new database for a set of exercise questions. We've pretty much exhausted all the questions we can think of that are relevant to you in that DVD rental database. So what we're going to do is restore a brand new database, and the important thing to know that we haven't encountered before is this database actually has two schemas, a public schema and then something called a CD schema, which is just the name of the schema. And because our tables exist within the CD schema instead of the public one, we just have to specify it in our queries. So this means the queries for the from tables part will have a CD dot in front of them. So there's two tables that you're going to be using. So one is bookings and the other one is facilities. And so you'll be doing things like select everything from cd.bookings or select everything from cd.facilities instead of just writing from bookings or from facilities. And we'll give you a quick little tour of the actual schema and tables after we're done restoring. So let's go ahead and restore the database. We have two options for downloading the actual .tar file. One is the exercise.tar file directly uploaded to Udemy. In case you have any issues with that, I've also provided a permanent Google Drive link you can download from. So go ahead and in the resources, you should see two links, one for the direct.tar file and another one for the Google Drive. You can use either one. I'm going to click on that Google Drive link to show you what it looks like. So if you click on that Google Drive link, it looks something like this. It'll say something like, whoops, there was a problem with the preview. That's totally okay. You can't really preview a .tar file within Google Drive. So just click the download button here and it'll eventually download. Notice I've already downloaded it underneath exercises.tar. The only thing we have to remember is where exactly this .tar file is, and you can just show in folder, and eventually you'll find it if you explore. It's most likely underneath your downloads folder. I actually have it here myself, so I can see I have exercises.tar, and I can see the full file path to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and now restore that. I'm going to hop over to PgAdmin. Okay, here I am in PgAdmin, very zoomed in right now just to show you. I'm going to right click on databases after I've already connected to a PostgreSQL server. If you're starting PgAdmin, you'll just have to click on servers, click on Postgres, reconnect, and then we'll go ahead and just like we did last time, right click on databases, hit create, and then select database. Go ahead and name this database, technically whatever you want. I'll just name it exercises, same as the .tar file. And then let me zoom out a little bit so I can select that save button. So I'm pretty zoomed in for filming purposes. There we go. So I'll save this. There we go. Let's go ahead and click on exercises so we can connect to it. And then what we're going to do is right click on exercises and then we will select restore. And in restore we have this custom or tar format, and then you have two options as always. You can either manually type in the file name, which we discussed before in the DVD rental install lecture. So if you have any issues finding it with these three dots, just manually type out the full file path. But you can also hit the three dots and go to wherever you happen to save it. So I have downloads here. I need to change my format to show all files, and then you can also show hidden files and folders. Let's go ahead and select this based off when I downloaded it. Here it is, exercise.tar. Go ahead and select. If you have any issues, especially if you're on Mac OS or Linux, with these three buttons, just manually type out the full file path. You can easily Google search how to find the full file path for any file on your computer. So if I couldn't find it through the three dots, I just simply pass in the full file path. Okay, just like last time, I'm going to restore with pre, data, and post data. That's all we need to do there. And let's go ahead and hit restore. It'll say restore job created, successfully complete. In some older versions of PostgreSQL, you may find a failed execode 1. That's totally okay. You can go ahead and ignore that failed execode. It just means that it accidentally tried to restore it twice. This only happens on some versions of PostgreSQL combined with a certain version of sometimes macOS or even Windows older operating systems. However, it looks like successfully completed, so I had no issues there. If you get failed execode 1, you can ignore it safely for now. Go ahead and exit that. Then, important step here, we want to refresh so we actually apply those changes. Now if we go down here to schemas, you'll notice we have two schemas, a public schema and a CD schema. The CD schema is actually the one we're using, where if we expand on this, we have actually three tables, bookings, facilities, and members. So to show you what these actually look like, I'm going to right click and let's open up a query tool on exercises. So be careful to make sure you actually right-click on exercises, not the old DVD rental one. So I see here exercises. I'm ready to run my query editor. And as I mentioned, in order to actually grab stuff from the table, you'll say select from, and then don't just type in bookings, otherwise you'll get an error. It'll say, hey, bookings doesn't exist. You need to type cd.bookings because it's under the cd schema. You run that, and here we have the bookings. So essentially the way this works is to give you a quick tour of this database. We have facilities in this, and we have a facility ID, the name of that facility. You can think of this as kind of like a resort or a gym. And we have tennis courts, massage room, squash courts, snooker table, pool table. We have the member cost, so how much it costs if you're a member. We have a guest cost, so if you're not a member of our particular gym or facility, it'll cost you extra. Some initial outlay parameter, and then the monthly maintenance cost. So how much does it cost us as the owners of these facilities to actually run the tennis court every month? So it costs us $200 a month. The guest cost is $25. Member cost is $5. Okay, that's the facilities. Let's go ahead and take a look at bookings. So bookings is essentially someone, or like a member, booking a facility. So we have the booking ID, the facility ID, the member ID, the start time, and then how many slots were necessary. So if they're doing something like tennis, maybe they book 2 slots, or maybe they're just there to practice, so they book 1 slot, etc. And then finally, we have members. CD members, go ahead and run that. We can see we have the member ID, the surname, first name. Notice that if they're a guest, it'll just say guest, as well as their address, a zip code, telephone. Note some of these telephones are fake. Well, they're technically none of these people are real. Recommended by could be null, so we have some possibility for empty values, and then the date they joined. Okay, so we do have some things that are a little bit tricky here. We have some null values depending on whether they're a guest. Maybe we have a membership, but we have some null values for other information, etc. But that's it. The 3 relationships between the tables are our actual facilities, booking those facilities, and then members who actually book those facilities. Okay, that's all you should need to know. And coming up next is going to be a bunch of questions for you to answer on this database. Best of luck. Welcome back, everyone, to this lecture where we're going to be coding through and explaining the solutions for the second assessment test. So in this lecture, we're going to work through the solutions, and we'll go back and forth between PgAdmin and the Google Doc with the questions. Keep in mind, if you're just looking for the written out solutions, you can check those out on the link in the previous lecture. Okay, let's get started by heading over to PgAdmin. All right, here I am in PgAdmin, and I also have the assessment test opened up, so SQL assessment test number 2, which is questions and expected results. In this, there's a link to the solutions which you can visit, and what we're going to do in this lecture is just code and explain out the solutions. So it starts off pretty basic, so we won't do a whole lot of explanations for the first couple of questions, and then we'll start explaining as they get more complex. So the first question is, how can you retrieve all the information from the cd.facilities table? So hopefully you were able to get this one quite simply by saying, if we come to PgAdmin, select everything from cd.facilities. And remember, we needed to include that cd because the facilities table is under the cd schema, not the public schema. So we run this, and we can see here we have the facility ID, name, member cost, guest cost, initial outlay, and monthly maintenance. Next question was, you want to print out a list of all the facilities and their costs to members. So we want to retrieve a list of only facility names and costs. That's simply coming back to PgAdmin, and instead of selecting everything, we'll just go ahead and grab the facility name and the member cost, which we can do by saying name, comma, member cost. Let's go ahead and run this, and there we have it. So we see back the various names, the facilities like tennis courts, badminton courts, massage rooms, and as well as how much they cost for the members. Question number 3 is, how can you produce a list of facilities that charge a fee to members? So if we take a look back at the results from the previous question, note that not all of them actually charge a fee. Some of them have a 0 cost for members, which means we want to go ahead and add a where statement, which filters out member costs that are basically 0. So we want to say where the member cost happens to be greater than 0. And if we run this, now we get back those 5 facilities. And it's up to you if you want to select all the columns or not, but essentially we're just looking for the 5 facilities where there's actually a cost to the member. Question number 4, and this one starts getting a little tricky because there's some math involved, is how can you produce a list of facilities that charge a fee to members and that fee is less than 1/50th of the monthly maintenance cost? And we want you to return the facility ID, facility name, member cost, and monthly maintenance of the facilities in questions. And there should actually just be 2 rows, massage room 1 and massage room 2. So how can we actually do this? Well, first, let's start by taking a look at what we already have. We actually want to select more than just the name and member column. We also want to select the facility ID, and we wanted to select the monthly maintenance. So we'll say monthly maintenance, make sure we spelled this right, from CD facilities. And so far, where member cost is greater than 0. So if we run this, make sure we say monthly. There we go. And here we have the facility IDs where we actually have a cost for this. Now what we want to compare is the 1/50th of the monthly maintenance cost. So notice here we have the monthly maintenance, 200, 3,000, etc., and the member cost. So what we're looking for is for this fee for the member to be less than 1/50th of the monthly maintenance cost. So the way we can do that is by filtering out, and we're going to have another condition where we want the monthly maintenance divided by 50, and we have to do this with a floating point number, so 50.0, in order to get back that full decimal. So we're saying monthly maintenance, make sure we spell this right again, there we go, divided by 50. So that's essentially 1/50th of the maintenance cost, and we want to compare where that member cost is less than monthly maintenance divided by 50. And if you just run it like this, you should get back the massage room 1 and massage room 2. So note here, again, I'm dividing monthly maintenance by 50 in order to get the 1/50th of the maintenance cost. You always want to be careful when dealing with fractions. Another way you could have done this is by saying 1 divided by 50.0 parentheses times monthly maintenance. And if you run that, make sure your parentheses are balanced when you run this. There we go. Run that and you should get back the same results. So again, different ways to do this. What you want to make sure is that your order of operations is correct. You don't want to accidentally do 1 divided by 50 times monthly maintenance, because that would set 50 times monthly maintenance as the denominator. Okay, so that's number 4. Let's move on to number 5. Okay, question number 5 was how can you produce a list of all facilities with the word tennis in their name? And note here we have both tennis courts and table tennis, which means I'm going to need to use the like operator in order to format tennis so it fits anywhere within that string of the name. So we'll come back to PgAdmin. Let's go ahead and select everything from CD facilities, where name, and this is where we have a couple of options. If you don't want to care about capitalization, you can say I like, and then we'll go ahead and have tennis. And then the percent signs allow us to say any number of characters before tennis and any number of characters after tennis. So if I run this, I can see I get back tennis court 1, tennis court 2, and table tennis. If you're using like, then recall that capitalization does matter there, and we have to have a capital T for tennis. Run that, and you'll get back the same results. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Next question is, how can you retrieve the details of facilities with ID 1 and 5? And it says, try to do it without using the OR operator. So let's go ahead and show you how you would do it with the OR operator, and then how you can do it without using the OR operator. So we'll come back here. One way to do this is by simply saying, select everything from CD facilities, where, and then we can say where facility ID is equal to 1, or facility ID is equal to 5. So if you run that, you get back these correct results, tennis court 2 and massage room 2. The way to do it without OR is by using the in operator, and you make a list. So we can say where facility ID is in 1, 5. And so that's basically now checking against this list. And if you run this, you get back the same results. What's nice about this is now you can easily expand this to any number of IDs by just adding it to this list instead of having to add a complete OR statement again. Now let's move on to question number 7, which is, how can you produce a list of members who joined after the start of September 2012? Return the member ID, surname, first name, and join date of the members in question. And the expected results is 10 rows, and not all of them are shown here below in this little figure, but it's basically there to show you the kind of results you should expect. So how do we do this? Let's come back to PgAdmin. Let's go ahead and select those columns it mentioned. It wanted member ID column, surname, the first name, and the join date. And then we're going to grab this from the CD members table. And here we're going to specify where, and they wanted where the join date is greater than or equal to, and then the formatting that table has is year, month, date. So we want people that joined either on or after September 1st, 2012. And if you run this, you should get back those 10 people. Okay, next question is, we want to know, how can you produce an ordered list of the first 10 surnames in the members table? The list must not contain duplicates, and we'll go ahead and let you include guest as a last name. So within the first ones in alphabetical order, the very last one will be guest. So we'll go ahead and let you include that. So how can we do this? Well, what we're going to do here is simply use an order by and then limit to 10. So we'll come over here and let's go ahead and say select. We'll say surname from CD members, order by surname. So if we just run this by itself, we'll get back everything in order. Now notice that there are duplicates. Notice there's 2 Farrells, and if we come over here, there's 2 Bakers. So the way we can remove those is by saying distinct surnames. So basically only the unique surnames. So now that we run that, that will get rid of the duplicates. And recall that we want to limit this to just 10. So we'll say limit to 10. Run this, and now we have those top 10. If for some reason you didn't want to include guest, you could easily use some sort of where condition to say where not equal to guest. Okay, coming back to the assessment questions. Number 9 is, you'd like to get the sign-up date of your last member. So how can you retrieve this information? Essentially, what is the very last person who signed up? When did they sign up? The way we can do this, if we come over here to PgAdmin, is by actually using the max keyword or function. So if we say select join date from CD members, and we run this, notice here we have all the dates. There's a couple different ways we could do this. We could order these either in ascending or descending order, depending if you wanted the first member to sign up or the last member to sign up, and then just run a limit 1. Or what you could do is say max on join date, run this, and you would get back basically the most recent person to have signed up. If you want the first person to have ever signed up, then you would choose the minimum date. You run that, and you can see this is the minimum person, essentially the very first person to sign up. So that's the way you can use min and max on dates. Otherwise, if you're having trouble with this, you could have done an order by and then just said limit 1 to get either the very first person or the very last person, depending on what you were thinking or what the question was asking for. Okay, let's move back to the assessment. Next, you want to produce a count of the number of facilities that have a cost to guess of 10 or more. So that one should be pretty easy. I'm going to come back here to the select statement, and we're going to select a count. Recall that in the count function, you can pass in anything because it's just counting the number of rows, which is independent of the columns. And then we'll say CD facilities, where the guest cost is greater than or equal to 10. Go ahead and run this. And here we get back, there's 6 facilities. If you actually wanted the name of those facilities, you could then just select everything, and this will give you all the information of those facilities. And here we can see the guest costs, 25, 25, 15.5, 80, 80, and 17.5, all above $10. Okay, and finally, these last couple of questions are going to be the most complicated. So number 11 is asking us to produce a list of the total number of slots booked per facility in the month of September 2012. Produce an output table consisting of facility ID and slots sorted by the number of slots. So lots of stuff going on here. Let's go ahead and start working through this. The expected result is 9 rows, and there's a little screenshot here of what you would expect to see. So I'm going to clear this. So we want to produce a list of the total number of slots booked per facility in the month of September 2012. So the way we can do that is let's go ahead and select the rows we're interested in. I'll grab facility ID, and then we also want to select the number of slots booked per facility. So that keyword, per facility, should basically alert you to the fact that you're going to have to use a group by statement. So here we're going to sum the number of slots available. So sum of slots as, and if we want to do this, we can say as total slots from CD bookings. And we have to do this just for September 2012, which means the start time. So we'll say where start time is greater than or equal to 2012 0901, and start time is less than or equal to 2012 1001. If you wanted to, you could use a between operator, but usually you have to be careful with the between operator and dates, because sometimes it will treat it as exclusive or inclusive depending on the system and how it thinks of the end of a day. Whether a day starts at 0 hours or ends at 2400 hours, that could cause some confusion with the between operator, and often for the end date you have to go 1 day further into the future. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to do this with the between operator and you are having trouble, see if expanding this beyond just the last day of September to, as I've shown here, the first day of the 10th of the month, so October, helps you out there. Okay, so then finally we need to group by facility ID, and then we're going to order by the sum of slots just so we can see this in order. Recall that I can't order by total slots because this alias gets assigned at the very end. So there's my full query. Go ahead and run this, and we can see here the facility ID, and now I can see the total number of slots open per facility. Okay, well, basically total slots booked per facility. Coming back to the assessment, next we want to produce a list of facilities with more than 1,000 slots booked and produce an output table consisting of facility ID and total slots sorted by facility ID this time. So the expected result is 5 rows, should look something like this. So facility ID and the total number of slots. So we'll come back to our PgAdmin. This is actually going to look extremely similar, except now we want to filter by the sum slots. So because we want to filter on something that has an aggregate function on it, we can't just use where, instead we need to use having. So we're no longer restricted by the month, so we'll go ahead and remove this where statement. And we want to still group by facility ID, but now I'm going to filter by using having because I'm filtering on some slots. So we'll say having the sum of the slots greater than 1,000. And the reason I can't use where here is because this is a column with an aggregate function being called on it, which means I have to use the having operator to filter on something that's being aggregated. Okay, and we also wanted to sort by facility ID this time. We'll go ahead and run this, and we get back those same results here. Okay, let's go ahead and come back to the assessment test. The next question on the assessment test is probably one of the more complex ones, since it's going to actually involve a join. And the question is, how can you produce a list of the start times for bookings for tennis courts for the specific date of 2012-9/21, so 21st of September? So we want to return a list of the start time and the facility name pairings ordered by the time. So recall that we only want it for the tennis courts, and we want their specific start time. If we come back to PgAdmin, let's go ahead and clear this. Let's take a look at what's inside the bookings table. So select everything from CD bookings. If we run this, note here that we have a booking ID, a facility ID, and a start time. So we have a facility ID, but we don't actually know whether it's associated with a tennis court or not. For that, if we come to cd.facility facilities, run this, we can see here the names, tennis court 1 and tennis court 2, and their associated facility ID. So we have their facility ID as 0 and 1. So we can either use their name or their facility ID to filter out just the tennis courts. And then we need to join this with that bookings table in order to actually grab the start time. So again, if we take a look at the bookings table, we have the actual start time. So the things I'm interested in are that start time and then the facility name. So either tennis court 1 or tennis court 2. And we can decide to filter facilities either by facility ID or facility name. So let's show you one way you can do this. This one is actually probably one of the questions you can do a multitude of ways. But the first thing we should be doing is selecting those two columns, which again, if we take a look here, it's the start time and the name. So we'll say select from cd.bookings, the start time, and then also select cd.facilities.name. And then what we're going to do is select this from cd, and we'll take the facilities table and do an inner join to cd bookings on, and let me scrunch this down a little bit, on the facility ID column. So on cd.facilities.facility ID is equal to cd.bookings.facility ID. And let's go ahead and put that on the same line, just so it's a little easier for me to read here. So if I just run this, note that I get back all the start times and all the names. So now recall that I need to filter this on the start times that are on September 21st, and I'm only looking for the facilities that are these tennis courts. So I can either filter by that facility ID or the tennis courts, depending on which one you prefer. Let's go ahead and begin filtering so that we only get those tennis courts. And just so it's a little shorter, I can say where cd.facilities.facility ID in 0, 1. So if I run it this way, note I get back only tennis court 1 and tennis court 2. The other option would be to say facilities name in, and here I could write out tennis court 1, comma, tennis court 2. So if I run this, note I get back the exact same results. So it's really up to you if you prefer filtering by that facility ID or the facility name. Just so it's a little cleaner, I'll do facility ID. That way I'm just typing out a 0 and 1. Okay, so if I run this, so far my facilities are correct, but the actual start times are not correct. So I'm only looking for things that start on September 21st. So the way we can do that is by saying and cd.bookings.starttime is greater than or equal to 2012-09, 2012-09, the 21st. So if I just run this, this gets me anything past September 21st. So if I keep running, notice I get 22nd, 23rd, and so on. So I actually need to have a stop time for this. So then we'll say and cd.bookings.starttime is less than, no, I'm just saying less than, not equal to, 2012-09, the 22nd. So if you run this, it's just everything that's on the 21st. And if you scroll down, you can confirm that by just saying 21st. And then to make sure everything is ordered correctly, what we can do is add in one last order by, which is order by cd.bookings.starttime. Run that, and here we get back our final result, which is the start time and then the name, tennis court 1 or tennis court 2, for everything that was on September 21st. Okay, so one final question, come back to the assessment test, and that is, how can you produce a list of the start times for bookings by members named David Farrell? So let's go ahead and do that. Come back to PgAdmin, going to say select, and here we're really just interested in, let's say, his start time from cd.bookings. We're going to do an inner join with cd.members because the members actually hold the names and the bookings holds the booking information. And so I just joined this simply on member ID. So we'll say members.member ID is equal to cd bookings.member ID. And if I just run this, and let's just select everything first so we can check it out. So here I can see the booking ID, facility ID, and the member ID. And if I scroll down, I can see the surname and first name. So recall I'm only interested in David Farrell. So we'll say where cd.members first name is equal to David and cd.members surname is equal to Farrell. Make sure you get the capitalization right there. Run that, and now I can see all the bookings for David Farrell. I'm actually only interested in the start time. So instead of selecting all the columns, I'll say cd.bookings.start time. Run that, and there we go. Okay, so it should be 34 rows. All right, that's it for the assessment test. Please take a look at the Q&A forums if you have any questions on any of those. Thanks, and I'll see you at the next lecture.